Welcome to the Home Yoga Practice Source podcast, where yoga is a practice and practice is everything. I'm Christine. I am a longtime yoga guide, founder of Healing Yoga and the Home Yoga Practice Workshop, and most importantly, a longtime home yoga practitioner. Today, I get to talk with Daphne Benavides, a licensed Eldoa trainer with a background in dance and physical education. She now focuses more on body care through yoga, bar, and Eldoa. And yes, she still dances. Welcome, Daphne. How are you?
I'm doing well. I am very happy to be here with you. My yoga practice started in the late 80s, actually at UCLA, my first yoga experience. But it didn't become really a part of my life until I met you through Badlands and took a home yoga practice workshop. And so that gift it allowed me to realize that yoga is not something that I just do, once or twice a week when I go to a formal class, but it's a way of life. And so yeah, the workshop, gosh, I want to say that was 2010, 2009, even, when I would have taken a workshop with you. And learn. Yeah, it's been a while.
I didn't realize that that's where you were introduced to the practice, the home part of the practice.
The home practice. So certainly there were times when I might do some yoga postures in my home, but I didn't really know what it meant to have a practice. And the arc of a class was a really important tool that you provided that allowed me to then make it more than just, I feel like doing a warrior one. So I stand in warrior one and then I'm doing some dance stuff, so because I was all over the board before I took that workshop. And then the workshop allowed me to give it some structure. So I would say that
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that it's a really powerful workshop that you provide. It's a really great and because it gives you those points, the breath work to begin, and your warm up and your pinnacle pose and cooling down in savasana, and just having those landmarks, I guess I would call them. That really allowed me to build what I consider now my home practice. So prior to that, I fooled around with yoga here and there at home, but I never had a practice. And once I had that tool, then I worked really hard at creating mini classes for myself, mini as in MINI, as well as mini MANY. So I like to have different, a shoulder class, a hip class, a hamstring class, whatever. So yeah, I guess I'm talking all over the place. Do you have
another? I'm riveted. And so everybody knows we did not discuss this before. We did chat a little bit before I started recording. After we close the interview, I do an HYP tip. And your tip for later today is the importance of structure, and a simple structure you can use. And so kismet.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a home yoga practice is a foundational tool for you now. And I'm really curious because you were a dancer when we met. We met in 2008 at a small business workshop.
Yep.
And So you have this background in dance. And I always think, and maybe this is colored by my early musical education. I would go to music classes, piano, guitar, once a week, and then I would practice at home. And so it's always seemed to, I just figured that dancers probably do that, right?
Absolutely.
And it seems to me like this expression of love for whatever we're doing that we practice at home, but then sometimes structure can kill it, right? So for instance, I would go home and start messing around on the keys and be enjoying myself, and then someone would put on a timer and a metronome and I would want to run away, right?
So that's a really great segue to another, it's been an evolution in my home practice. When I first learned the tool of the structure of a yoga practice, I felt like I had to be able to do an entire practice from arc to arc and reach that pinnacle. And for me, that took a minimum of 30 minutes and often a lot more. And many days in my life, I didn't have the time for it. And so there was a period where I wasn't doing daily home practice because I couldn't find the time. And I feel like it was in one of the coaching sessions with you that you shared that some other practitioner that you know who has a very busy life with kids and full-time job, that his practice might be 5 minutes of legs up the wall, but that's still a practice. If you are quieting the mind, focusing on your breath, and having intention in your 5 minutes of legs up the wall. And so that gave me permission to let go of the structure. And so like right now, I am living in a remodel that has been going for many months. It was supposed to only go for 2 months. The first 2 months, I actually was able to keep a practice space in our home that we're remodeling while we're camping outside the home, basically.
You've done that before too.
I did have a little practice space, but after the first 2 months, like it disappeared and there's dust and chaos everywhere. So in the last few months, my practice hasn't been as robust as it is at other times in my life. Many days it's simply breath work. Like this morning, I did some square breathing and I did some seated cat cow. And then I did one standing balance with a rotation. And then I stood in mountain for my Savasana because I don't even really have a clean place to lay down and practice Savasana. So that was my practice. It was, 5-6 minutes, but it was something, and it grounds me and it helps my brain settle. And I feel like it just keeps me in a better emotional state.
I often in the workshop, as you know, we often talk about what's your motivation, because clarifying that from time to time is helpful for, so why do I come to do this? And when we know that, we're just more likely to create the 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And often my most constant motivation is I'm a better human. Like I like me better.
Right.
Forget people. I like me better. This is a better neighborhood in here when I've had 5 minutes, 15 minutes. And yeah, sure. Some mornings it's a glorious hour and a half.
Right. Aren't those beautiful? But some mornings they don't allow an hour and a half.
We're householders. We're not sannyasi sitting out in the woods with nothing except, breathing.
Right.
occupy us, and we're coordinating with other humans, and that's part of our practice.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And part of your practice, along with staying mindful and centered in the midst of remodeling, God both, is that you have, over the past couple of years, become a certified Aldoa practitioner. And so what does Aldoa stand for, and why did you get interested, and how does it affect your home yoga practice?
I'm going to give you the translation of Aldoa. Aldoa is created by a French osteopath, Dr. Guy Voyer. It translates in English as loads: longitudinal, osteoarticular, decoaptation, stretching, and strength, I would add, because you also strengthen while you create space.
Loads tissue, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was devised as a means to help his patients recover from back pain, whether that was just from age. As we age, our spine, we decompress, and those discs, they get smaller. They just do. They thin out as we age, and they lose hydration. And so part of it is creating space, which allows them to stay hydrated and more functional.
Yeah.
And, many people hurt themselves in injuries, back injuries. And so the Aldoa postures can help to remediate injuries as well. I started learning it to help my husband, who does a lot of heavy lifting as a set dresser in the film industry. And it keeps his back in alignment and helps with pain prevention for him, which is why I got into it. But it feeds me right now. I've learned so much about the human body through the studies, the certification courses. I've had to go more deeply into anatomy than I ever did as a dance or PE teacher. And learning about all the connections between the viscera, the organs of the body, and the fascia and the muscles and our bones, and how everything connects and attaches in our spinal column, and what all of that does for overall health. Mm-hmm. And a different aside, I also, in the past 5 or 6 years, I had the opportunity to experience past life regression healing through the Dolores Cannon method.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned from that practitioner was about our brain waves when we sleep, and the things that go on between the brain and the dura mater in our spinal column. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to study Aldoa, that same concept came around, and it really is quintessential to our immune system. And our immune system resides in our dura mater. And when we sleep, our body heals, and it goes out seeking within the body, like, where are the cells that need help? And so for me, all these things are coming together and connecting and supporting one another.
I think it's so amazing when insights from one part of our lives illuminate the insights from the others. And part of the immune system is the lymphatic system. And Western science has discovered recently what they're calling the lymphatic system of the brain. And that's part of what lubricates and interacts with the dura mater, and the 3 layers that protect our brain. Mm-hmm. And so there's so many foundational insights in yoga, and it seems like Eldoa has really sort of organized and codified these, and that has been a point of insight and contact for you.
Absolutely. And then just on a functional basis, so some days I will do sort of a combination. I'll do,
Wondering.
yeah, so I will do maybe a yoga, I'll do my breath work and maybe a yoga warm up, some sun salutations. And then I do, so my other love is bar fitness, which is based on the Pilates method of strength training with resistance, so without weights. And so I do a little bit of that to get some strength training in. And then I may back to yoga stuff for some balance exercises and some quieting down. And then I finish with Eldoa. Eldoa, because it creates space in the joints, you want it to be the last thing. You wouldn't want to create space in your joints and then do something where you might then load that area, right, and create an injury. So yeah, so they're all weaving together for me.
That is so beautiful. It sounds like you've got plenty of inspiration and motivation, and if it's carrying you through a time when your practice space is being able to stand out of doors, then you're that's inspiring all by itself. But during other times in your life, what have been the challenges that have kept you perhaps away from the mat? Because I think all of us who have a home yoga practice, we go through these times where we're challenged and the mat can feel like kryptonite. What has helped you move with and dance with those challenges and come back to it?
So the challenge for me is almost always time. Which, although as I say that, I realize that is a mental construct that I'm creating, that I don't have enough time, because I probably do.
It's so complex, right? Because there are certainly days where you have to get up at 4 a.m. to catch a blah blah flight, and you just hit the ground. And there are periods of time for people with kids where you're just not in charge, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so what's your approach to dealing with the fact that time is, at least in part, a construct?
So I think, and I already alluded to it, by giving myself permission that I don't have to spend an hour on the mat.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to do it on a mat.
Yes, please say more.
So there are times when I've been in the car and I'm running errands and I'm all stressed out, and I get in the car and I realize, oh yeah, I never did any yoga today. And before I turn the ignition over, I just stop and close my eyes, breathe, do breath work. I mean, at the heart of yoga is not really it. At the heart, I mean, I'm not certified in yoga, but my understanding is that the postures were created really to support the meditative aspect of yoga.
Yeah.
And so if I don't have time to do the posture, but I can sit in stillness and focus on breath, then I'm still practicing.
In fact, so there's a quote from Krishnamacharya that I'm not going to get completely right, but it's something about if we can work with our senses, if we have some control over where we gift our sensory experience, that is our path to well-being. And so, yes, it's about, and I mean, we're even calling them postures, right? So it's how you sit. Once you get into the car, are you holding onto the steering wheel for dear life? Not that I've ever done that. Or are you relaxing? Do your shoulders feel spacious and open? And that's what, and in connecting through the posture, like, oh, right, shoulders over hips, ears over shoulders, lifting up through the head. All of a sudden, I'm turning my attention, I'm sensing inward. And then I've taken back. I'm not just letting my eyes roam. I'm not just listening to the mad traffic around me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm reclaiming my sensory experience, and that's where yoga starts to happen. We start.
So that leads me to another connection between yoga and Eldoa. One of the pillars of Eldoa is proprioception, your awareness of yourself in space,
Mhm.
and how you move and how you hold your body. And that has just changed so much for me in the past couple of years. Like, I catch myself with little postural habits that over the long run, they're going to lead to that right hip going bad, because I sit into that hip and grind that hip. And so there are all these little self-awareness things that are just helping me to change how I move each day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I I know Eldoa does this differently. Sometimes it's as simple as, can you feel your back right now? Can you feel where that back foot is in warrior one? How do you know where it is? You know, but how? And really, really grounding into that. I think that's the definition of grounding, right? And science has also, within the past couple of decades, we live in such a rich time for understanding the various layers of our embodiment. The one of the brain parts, one of the parts of our anatomy that allows us to interocept, to propriocept. Proprio is just the sensation of where we are in space. Interoception, sensing what's happening internally, is the same piece of our anatomy that can switch us into hypervigilance.
Right.
It's a switching station that decides, oh, do I really need to be scanning, or am I safe enough to draw my senses home? And when we practice drawing our senses home, we're practicing switching from hypervigilance into the nervous system of connection and creativity. And yeah, so it sounds to me like there are different layers that are highlighted by the various techniques that you've incorporated into your home yoga practice.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes your home yoga practice does include dancing?
Probably not my home yoga practice, no. But yeah, that's just more freestyle.
Gotcha.
Just,
For joy.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing with us your heart for practice, your understanding of your practice, your longevity in your practice, and your expertise today. I think there's lots more for us to talk about. Perhaps we can continue at another time. But for now, I'm wondering if are there one or three things that you would tell to somebody who's considering starting their own home yoga practice that you would gift from yours, hard-won wisdom from your mat?
Um, definitely if it's even remotely an interest for somebody, do it. Find a way, because it brings so much positivity in my life. There are zero regrets for having a home yoga practice. So yeah, all the rewards, no, no regrets. Um, I guess create a space if you're able to, because that does make it easier to get there. But if you can't create a space, know that it's still available to you, that yoga can be done anywhere in any time frame, and just give yourself that permission to be creative with it.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for sharing this time with me, and for sharing home yoga practice templates and principles, because they've really been great for my life.
Thank you so much. We're friends as well as colleagues, and I'm thrilled that it's been of use for you, and now we get to share it with the world.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. I hope we get to do this again.
I do too.
So, hey, thank you, Daphne. Daphne is a certified Eldoa trainer in Northern California, and she can, oh, I did want to ask, are you doing only in person?
Eldoa really needs to be in person. It
Yeah,
really is a hands-on. I mean, you can take, there are people that do online Eldoa fitness classes, but that's a lot different than a healing regimen. And I wouldn't recommend doing an online Eldoa fitness class unless you have a foundation, some basic understanding of Eldoa.
Okay. So Daphne is in North Carolina, and North California.
I'm actually in the central coast of California.
Oh,
San Luis Obispo County, for anyone who's familiar with California.
and looking for a contact. She can be reached at Central Coast of California in the SLO area, right?
Yes.
And she can be reached at eagburbank@gmail.com, and that'll be down in the comments below if anybody wants to reach out. Thank you so much, Daphne, and
Thank you.
I will see you soon. Our home yoga practice tip for today. HYP can have a simple structure, and structure helps us relax with the experience. So here's a simple 5-part structure that you can start to use today. Use it with moves you love from your yoga class. Bring those home. Use it with moves that confuse you. What can you learn by playing with them? And I really encourage us all to approach home yoga practice with a spirit of play, of really deciding to believe ourselves, to sense what's happening inside and follow that. So whether you're using moves you love, moves that confuse you, or moves that just make you feel good by the end, first, choose your beginning point by laying down, sitting, or standing. Number 1, begin with breath awareness. And a simple way to do this is to simply inhale the arms up and overhead, and exhale the arms down. Simply becoming aware of the breath. And then number 2, move through some complementary movements like cat and dog. Some people call this cat and cow. Move through some simple complementary movements as a warm-up to connect to rhythm, movement, and sensation. And then select your technique. So whether that's a posture, a breath, a flow, select one that speaks to you. either because it creates comfort, because it creates a soothing sensation, or maybe it creates challenge. And then choose a complementary or opposing movement in your body. So for instance, if the movement you chose was cobra pose, a back bend, the complementary movement would be some sort of forward fold. Rinse and repeat. By the way, it's called counter pose, and it is the lifeblood of yoga practice. Your teacher uses it all the time. And then at the end, rest. Most important part of any yoga practice. And it can be helpful to have a set of standard postures that you use before you sink down into your shavasana, into your rest. I often use bridge, laying down twist, and then simply releasing into the ground. 5 parts. Begin with breath awareness, complementary flow movements like cat dog for a warm up. Select a posture, do a counter posture, rinse, repeat until you're wrapped. We're glad you are here. Until next time, let us know about your home yoga practice and your home yoga practice questions. Until then, I'll see you on the mat. Happy Yoga Day.